Yeah, I'm cool.
Cool. I'm good at clapping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, 1, 2, 3. Well, thank you, Paige, for coming to my space to interview with me. I'm really excited. I think we had a really good preliminary chat, and I think we're gonna have some fun. I think we're gonna have a really good time talking about some of the things that you're interested in and your particular area of expertise and all that. So, are you ready to go? Are you excited?
Yeah, just getting comfortable. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's start with the first question. Why is it important, in your opinion, that someone pursue education throughout their life?
Well, I guess I could start with myself as an example.
Yeah.
I've always been in school.
Yeah.
I like to consider myself a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
And I really like learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when I look at other people and see examples of older people or,
Yeah.
seniors even, I notice that those who have been learning all their lives are the ones that actually are still passionate about not only learning, but also living. Like, learning and living are so closely related.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're so similar.
Do you think that there is a difference between going to school or practical education and learning, and how do you cultivate the right attitude about that mindset?
Unfortunately for some people, learning in a classroom is a little bit more difficult than it might be for other people. And
Right.
I don't really know what it is. I don't know what kind of aspects of a personality make it more difficult for people to learn
Yeah.
in those settings, but I have always enjoyed that, and I think it's just a mountain to climb. It's so, for those people who might be predisposed to those
Yeah.
kinds of conditions, they could probably overcome that. It's a mountain to climb, right?
Yeah.
But I think the right kind of attitude is that life, just like learning, they're very similar, so there's going to be struggles. It's going to be difficult.
Yes.
You're
yeah.
going to suck at something, you're going to rock at other things.
Right. I don't think that necessarily that means that education is a bad thing, but I do think that the word itself has very specific connotations, and in general,
probably.
we associate it to mean a formal education, right?
Right.
So,
some people are probably really scared about that, and that might be the very factor that's inhibiting them from learning.
Yes.
So that's a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not the education student, but that's the one thing I'm not doing. No, I'm kidding. But I think I'd like to say, they're ridiculously different, but they're really, really, really quite similar as well, on the other hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you make it for yourself.
Yeah.
And just like you're saying, it is an attitude.
Yeah.
So, if you're sitting in a classroom going, this education sucks,
Mm-hmm.
well, are you learning? Maybe not, because
Mm-hmm.
you're so afraid of education that you can't climb the mountain. So.
Yeah. It reminds me of this really interesting quote from a comedian by the name of Amy Poehler. I'm sure you've heard of her.
No,
Maybe
I
you
don't
have?
think so.
Okay,
no,
cool.
No.
Sorry, no,
Comedy is another thing.
Okay, so Amy Poehler, she's done a few things. I think she started, I don't know, it sounds so bad, but I think she started off on SNL. And
Okay.
has blonde hair. Anyway, she's really funny.
Okay.
And she's been kind of a big deal in the sort of the female comedy circuit for the past, I'd say better part of the past, 5 to 10 years. On a international level, right? And one of the things,
I know what you're talking about.
one of the things that she said, which I think is so profound and so smart, is sometimes you'll do something in life and you'll suck at it, but by doing that you figure out okay, this is something that I'm not good at, and then you can go and do something else that you wouldn't have necessarily figured out about yourself if you hadn't tried to do that awful thing.
Right.
Right?
It's a choice.
And by choosing to fail or try or whatever word you want to say, but by choosing to do things, you're becoming a more well-rounded person. How do you find you spend most of your unscheduled time?
Oh my gosh, all my time is scheduled. Even my unscheduled time is perfectly. No, I'm not that crazy, but I
Yeah.
really do like dedicating my time. I think that's what I mean. I'm deliberate. So I'm like, I'm going to go on a computer and I'm going to write this program today. You know?
Yeah.
So I don't blob. I'm not a blob.
No.
I don't sit around watching TV and, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing I noticed about you, because every time we've hung out or been in an interaction together, it seems like you've always had something that you were on your way from or on your way to, and you'd always have, like, well, the last time we met, you actually pulled out your agenda, okay, well, I'm busy, but this time, this time, like, so, do you, sort of a side note, but do you find that by structuring your life in that way, even when you have unscheduled things, like, do you find that helps you?
Yeah.
Or, and why is that?
I love technology, and I love that, you know, we can schedule our lives so much easier than, you know, however they used to schedule their lives back in the day.
Yeah.
But I love keeping organized with my schedule, and I find that it actually brings me to places where it's kind of like practicing. It's practicing, right? So routine helps you to fall into a rhythm.
Yeah.
And, you know, I heard someone once say, well, routine is what breaks us down. And, you know, I can see that, but it's not like I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm just making sure I'm scheduling something. And,
Yeah, I think what happens is people get stuck with a routine, and they forget that routine can actually allow them to be better prepared to do things that are more difficult.
Right.
Because if you're doing something that's the same all the time, of course it's going to bore you. It's not going to challenge you. You're not going to grow. But if you automate those menial things, then it gives you room to be more creative.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, actually, like you're kind of saying, like, routine leads to spontaneity.
When we're talking about classes and courses and, you know, situations where you're learning something new that it's all very structured, when does that fit your sort of expectations for learning?
Well, funny enough, some of my favorite courses ever have been with these instructors that are all, like, incredibly introverted, and they're like, oh my gosh, I really hope I'm doing okay for my students. They're so concerned every day, they get nervous to lecture, but they're my favorite because they're so nervous that they need to make it deliberate. You know, they're not the people who come late and just wander in and go, well, I didn't plan that, but here I am. No, I like the ones that are early, waiting, just in case they have questions. Oh my gosh, what if they have questions, you know? I've got to, you know, make note of any housekeeping things at the beginning of the lecture, just so that they know when their exams are, exactly how I'm going to be marking that thing that, you know, I love the anal ones. I love the instructors that are all in it and are concerned that, you know, am I coming across? I've had an instructor come to me recently, and he said, like, is everybody getting this? Am I coming across? I'm like, I'm glad you're concerned. Your concern speaks to me that you're actually wanting us to learn. And he thinks music is the coolest thing ever, so we follow the vibe. But it's nice to see instructors who are concerned. Yeah. And then with courses, the courses that are the best ones, I find, are the ones that it's kind of opposite. I like the ones that have less structure, so like a seminar. You're sitting in there and you're like, I have no idea what this lesson is all about, but look, we're talking about something really, so
you're talking about something very specific, and then you're supposed to engage in a dialogue with the rest of the class about it. Yeah. But it's like, you don't know where that's going to go. You don't know what's going to come out of it. And hopefully it sticks to the instructor's intentions. Yes, right?
And it's got it. Like, I like the ones where the instructor can foresee what might be happening. You know? Yeah.
It's funny because when you mention that quality of an instructor versus a class, it makes me think it's almost like the quality you're looking for is that sense of passion or drive or interest or commitment to the thing, right? And I don't think it's necessarily separate in terms of whether someone's introverted or extroverted, right? But
Yeah.
what you're gravitating to is a very specific quality which anyone can have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyone. You're right. Anyone. Introverted, extroverted. What's the one in between? So, there's something in between.
Oh, okay.
That one. Yeah. You know. Yeah. They can all be passionate. Totally.
Have you ever learned a lesson in your life when you weren't expecting it?
I have parents, of course. Yeah. Next question. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you have one in mind, obviously.
Right. So
Yeah.
she was just ancient.
Yeah.
I hope she doesn't listen to this. But she was surprising because she would just make you do these things.
Yeah.
She'd just make me have the right tone. I needed to do so many adjustments.
Yeah.
And there was another instructor there that was co-teaching with her, so two
Yeah.
vocal instructors at that same institution, and
Yeah.
I was praying, Lord, next year, could I be with the other one? This one's too weird for me. But no, I kept getting stuck with her,
Yeah.
and as the couple of years went by, I was thinking, oh my goodness, her students, the other instructor's students, weren't advancing. They weren't being pushed to that next level because they were just continuously being taught, oh yeah, what you're doing is good, just, keep doing it,
Yeah. So you weren't being challenged, or they weren't being challenged, but you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me, okay, so you're talking about like these crazy things that you're doing. Have you ever seen Karate Kid? That's what I'm, like in my mind, that's what I'm thinking, like she's like telling you to throw a pencil into the wind or something crazy, and you're like, what does this have to do with singing?
Yes. And there were tons of awful metaphors that she would give me that are not repeatable, can't say them, too offensive, but tons of weird things.
Yeah.
But as soon as they clicked, and it was actually too late, I felt. I was like, wait, come back. I'm not done learning.
Now.
Yeah, I understand the pebble thing. Yeah, I was like, almost, come back.
Yeah.
Grasshopper, whatever. Or is that a different one?
No, that's fine. That's good.
But yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it just clicked, but then it was starting to fade, and so I was like, wait a minute. But then I actually started relying on pop technique, and that helped to fill in the blanks a little bit, because her opera technique was just too unique. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I went over to her house one time, and she opened up a book that had too much dust on it. It was freaky. And on the spine, though, it was like Baroque Italian techniques or whatever.
Yeah.
Opened it up.
Yeah.
And it's all these weird metaphors that she's been telling me. So it was the first time I was like, wait a minute, you got it from someone else? I was like, you're not just making this crap up. This is real.
It's a legacy of...
It's a legacy. Yeah. And that was the coolest thing for me because I was one of her last students.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to carry this thing on, this legacy.
Is there any advice that you'd give to someone who cannot seem to find what to do with their life or find what their purpose is?
And I suppose we were talking about purpose before.
Yeah.
And life is so linked with learning.
Yeah.
I would say, when was the last time you went to school? You know? Or even if they don't like school, when was the last time you picked up a book that wasn't about Harry Potter?
Right.
When was the last time you picked up an autobiography or a biography?
Right.
Or something that challenges the way we're living, like even a textbook. When was the last time you picked up a textbook? They might have some kicking around, you know? And it's not to say that life is learning. Mm-hmm. Life is more than learning, but learning just fits right in. Learning is that small part that fits right into life. Like it's one of those things that learning enhances life, certainly. It's definitely... So for someone who's struggling to find their purpose, I would say, well, maybe it's not that you've been doing the wrong thing.
Because, when you get to those ruts or those troughs or what do you want to call them?
Yeah.
It's often because you've sort of, leveled off in terms of what
whatever you were doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, I've heard the idea like people change their careers several times, right?
Right.
And have you also heard the idea of mastery taking, roughly 10,000 hours?
Yes.
So if you're doing a career and you've been doing it for, let's say, 2 years or 3 years, of course you're all of a sudden doing that 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
You've capped that. You should understand that intrinsically. And so then you have to say, like, I would think anyone who respects, themselves, and I don't mean to say like you don't respect yourself if you don't do that, but
right.
they'll say, okay, I get this now. What else can I do that's a little bit more challenging?
And that's that whole other beauty of, like what you were saying, it's like, well, if you try different things, you find out what you suck at, and you don't really, maybe you don't need to continue unless you really want to do it, then try again.
Right.
But if there's an area that you're absolutely rocking at, then, maybe you have more breadth than you think, and you've been focusing on that depth in that one thing for a really long while.
Yeah.
Time to go to the next
pull
thing.
Pull up the anchor and go to the next.
Yeah, go to the next lake, ocean, wherever, Yeah, like totally pull up the anchor. Nice. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite life lesson that you've experienced and you wish everyone just like got it?
I love this question so much. This is the best question ever.
Yeah?
Like, so appropriate. And I'm so sorry because I'm like, wow, I could say so many things.
Yeah.
With my family, I'm known to be the ranter, so maybe every week I have a different topic, and I'm like, guys, you have to understand this with me. So like, this week, today, I might be like, wow, the best thing you need to know is this, but it won't be true next week.
Okay.
So it's like, such a good question, and I really wanted you to say it because maybe people listening to this can think of that for themselves as well, and I'll continue to think every day, what's the thing that I could tell someone right now? What's that one thing that I could say, to, maybe someone will just bonk themselves on the head 5 years later because they didn't learn it right when I told them, but like you're saying, they'll gradually come to learn it.
Hopefully.
But I can't really sum it up.
Okay.
Like, it's so good, and I really want people to keep on asking themselves that day.
Yeah.
Every day, sorry.
Yeah.
What they could teach people.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it kind of offers two perspectives. You're giving the perspective of what I have to say contributes to society and to people, and it's important. So it's an affirming thing, right?
Right.
And then the other thing, it's also in that process of learning and education, you're questioning things, and you're saying that I don't understand everything, and because I don't understand everything and other people don't, it's like a reminder. You're saying, wait a second, they don't get this, so I probably don't get everything either.
Right.
At least I hope that's how people interpret that.
Yeah, I hope people interpret that way too, because that sounds really good. But yeah, I think that you're right. Like, I'm also a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
If they're learning this, then so am I. Like, same journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm going to steal a phrase. I think it was Einstein who said this. But he said, if you understand something, you should be able to explain it in the most simplest terms and word choices so that anybody can understand what you're saying, right? So that's kind of the other side of that question is if you can't explain that thing to that person, maybe you haven't learned everything you should have learned, or maybe you're struggling with some other character trait that you haven't developed properly yet, right? That you can't communicate that idea.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a bad thing either, though, to not know.
Yeah.
There are some things we can know.
Right.
We're allowed to know some things. My name is Paige.
Yeah.
I am 23 years old.
Yeah.
And, there are things that we are allowed to know, but then there are other things that are a mystery. An eternal mystery.
Yeah.
And science loves to say, I've solved that problem.
Right.
But the arts should be there to say, it's an eternal problem. Breathe.
Yeah.
You'll be okay not knowing that.
Right.
So
that's why you got so passionate about the question.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you can't necessarily answer it.
Yes.
It's such
Yes.
You're right. It is a beautiful question.
It is a really beautiful question, and we should keep on thinking about it every day.
Awesome. Love it. Great answer. Great non-answer to my question. Why do you think people spend so much time in their lives focusing on so many different things?
Right, so that instead of, we were just talking about like the anchor, putting your
Yeah.
anchor too deep in that one thing and not
Yeah.
going across.
Yeah.
Like in my life, it tends to be, I am, just swimming in the shallow waters of so
Yeah.
many different kinds of things so many different things to do.
Right.
And I think maybe it's because I'm at that stage where I'm trying things and I still have yet to see which things I'm not that great at before I can make a decision.
You think that that's something that people who are open to things and are experiencing different lifestyles or conversation topics or thoughts or ideologies or what have you, that's the result of an outside observer. That's what they're seeing, that's what they're witnessing.
And it's seen as a bad thing, you mean?
Yeah.
Like it's seen as, so someone looking at me might be like, you're not very passionate because you have your, all fingers in different pies. You know? So someone might look, okay, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose it might be if I was 96. But the 96-year-old that I know is really good at, oh my goodness, is she ever amazing at sewing.
Yeah.
She sewed a really, really big, tall, like long coat for a tall guy, like her grandson. So like a really long coat that looks like it's from a video game. Like, it's amazing. So she's really good at sewing. Like, she's bonkers. She's not good at what I'm good at. She's not good at other kinds of things. And so if I was 96, I might be like, did I do enough? Did I try enough in those things? Did I get deep enough? I might be a little worried.
To say that you're like, I'm good at this and this and this and this, and this is what I care about. And this is who Paige Knickle is, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's who I am.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now in my life, what I'm trying to do is dig a little deeper.
Right. Where do you think the schools of the future will be? And who will be the teachers of those schools?
Well, right now there's a huge trend online for these open classrooms or online classrooms. There's an acronym for this.
Yeah.
So essentially you Skype in, but everyone's seeing the same instructor.
Yeah.
And giving a lecture or something. And sometimes it's not live. Often it is live. There's like those Google
they'll
ones
be leaving
well.
comments and things like that in the message board. Or
Yeah. So sometimes it's live. Other times it's just like a video that has been posted. So it seems to be going in this like digital way. Education seems to be going online a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really think that schools will be obsolete. I think people will always value face-to-face interaction. I think. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think that I think we're going to see a lot more homeschooling, actually. I think we're going to see a return to that.
Huh.
Because we've gone through this crazy industrialist stage in like the early, was it like 1900s till now? Or late 1800s till now?
Late 1800s, yeah, totally.
And what we're seeing now is, the reason why I say this is because we had the hobby industry before that, right? So everyone was doing hobby industry things and their children would often work for them or work for someone else and get their education through that.
Right.
But with the internet now, there was a point in our history where corporations and large businesses were sort of the top of the heap. And I don't think that's not the case anymore, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's a transition away from that. Yeah. So I think that from an education standpoint, we'll see more of that as well. Maybe when I say homeschool, maybe that's the wrong word, but it's more of a specialized one-on-one type of education system happening.
Right.
That's my perception.
Okay. Yeah, because homeschool kind of, we have that image of like,
homeschooling.
what homeschooling definitely is, but yeah, there's something like some sort of apprenticeship thing going on.
Right. And that's what I would be curious to see. I don't know if that, like you said, it might not be exactly that.
Yeah.
But I think that there will be aspects of that in it.
Yeah.
And that's my answer.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a way to reconcile the gap between the arts and the sciences?
Wow. I love this question. Once again, great question. Great questions. Great questions.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Kind of like I've been saying, sometimes I feel like sometimes I wake up in the morning and there is no gap at all. You know,
Yeah.
I am designing a program or trying to design a program
Yeah.
that can hear my pitch and it'll write it on notation. You know, like
Yeah.
they're not actually separate from each other because I'm playing a note on the piano and I hit it in such a way that I hear the fundamentals and the harmonics above, and I'm thinking, wow, math and physics is so neat because these sounds are resonating with each other and the fractals of a string are so wow.
Yeah.
Like there's sometimes I wake up in the morning and they're not different at all. They're not. But
Right.
other mornings I wake up and I'm like,
Which one do I choose?
Yeah. Which one do I choose today?
Because you have this very unique quality about you that sort of screams, I am an intellectual and an analytical and someone who has logic behind my thoughts, but I also have very strong feelings and passion and excitement for life, and I'm interested in things that are, like you said, eternal, or I question.
Right.
And so I think you demonstrate that very well in how you answer your questions and how you talk about the things you care about. And I think you're kind of doing that autonomously. If that's a good word to choose.
Thanks, Tim. That's a great compliment. That's a fantastic compliment.
But like so many people don't, and I use my language, but like it's shitty to see that because like they can work together and they do function together, and
They totally do.
and there's so many ways that, and I think you said this when we were chatting in our preliminary discussion, like people who are in the sciences should go into the arts because they can offer something to these people who only think in one way.
Yeah.
And then like vice versa, like people in the arts should like try and have a little bit more appreciation for research and planning and structure and things like that.
And like you're saying, you walk the same path that you're going on, but you put on the other person's shoes. You know, you put on different glasses, but you still do the same things you do all throughout the day, but just view them through a different lens. So it's almost like we can benefit ourselves and each other by sharing those things that we know, but they complement the other.
Right? I think, again, not to like lead the discussion or like lead in like the sneaky ending, but I think that's what you're doing, right? Like you're saying like, no, like I care about all of these things and I'm going to try them all and I'm going to figure out a way to make it work for myself. And doing things like having a studio that you run and you do the very specific technical aspect of running the control room, but also performing and then inviting people into that environment, right?
Right. So. And like you say, probably a good metaphor for it is the studio, because that glass is actually a lot thinner than we think.
Right.
There's a lot more going across the glass than we often like to think. We like to think this kind of person is trained to do that job, the control room only, and this musician is trained to do that, right? But I went to a session this week. I won't name drop, but he is a composer and a producer and a musician, and he was saying, he was showing me lots of cool examples, and I don't think he said it, but I felt like what he was trying to say was sometimes the producer or the engineer has to be a better musician than the musician, they have to be way more into the art of it than, because they have to see the scope of it. They have to imagine who's going to eat this up. Who's going to buy this song?
Yeah.
What are those fans going to be wearing? Oh, should I dress the band in those outfits and put them on the picture of this album? They're in control of all of these things. It's the science of art, and it's art and science happening. So the studio is a perfect metaphor for that link.
And sometimes that means like not being at the center stage. It's like sharing of yourself without wanting to be the center of attention.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so
yeah,
that's why I make those comments, because like I see you doing both those things. I have a lot of respect for it. So.
Cool.
Hopefully I didn't run on too long about it.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got to say, Paige. So
That's it. Do we shake hands?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. A lot of great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you learned something?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I learned something. Yeah.
I hope so, because I did too.